Welcome to the space between two lines. I'm Alex Saunders, and this is a space for real, honest conversations about fertility, pregnancy loss, and the journey to parenthood. Here, we hear the stories of people navigating the highs, the lows, and everything in between. A place to feel seen, understood, and less alone. Because every story matters, and so does yours.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I think Alex has done an intro, but my name's Rosie. I'm a good friend of Alex's, and I'm so proud of you, and I'm so excited for everyone who is going to listen to this podcast to not only learn about your journey, but hear from everyone else who's joining the podcast. I can't believe how many people have already said that they want to be involved and share their stories. So I hope today is exciting and authentic and beautiful, and there's obviously a lot of emotions in here, but it's pretty special what you're doing. So well done, Al.
Well, thank you, Rosie. And it is super exciting. And I'm so excited to share everyone's stories. And I think this is just going to be a really positive thing to put out there.
I can't believe there's nothing like this already.
I know.
Yeah.
And I think that's when I started on my journey, that was the thing. I couldn't believe it either. There's so many women going through this, and there's just nothing out there that they can really relate to. There's small things, but there's nothing kind of on this scale that is fully dedicated to the challenges that come with wanting to have a baby. So, yeah.
Well, in that case, let's get it kicked off. Do you want to share a little bit with everyone about your story, your journey with infertility, and what's brought you here today?
Yeah, so my name is Alex, and I live in Geelong with my husband, Nick. We have a little boy called Oliver, 2 border collies, and I'm very excited to be able to say that I am 16 weeks pregnant. It has been a long journey to get to here with our second child. I'll talk more about it, obviously, throughout this episode of how we got here. With our first child, Oliver, it was a pretty straightforward process, although we did need some intervention. It happened quite quickly for us. So I guess I'm really going to be focusing today on our secondary infertility journey and what that looked like. But I think it's also important to talk about my medical history and what led us get to that situation.
I'd never heard of the term secondary infertility until you started talking about it on TikTok. Had no idea that it was even something that happened for so many women. So,
yeah. And if anyone who is going through secondary infertility, I'm sure you can relate to this. If you've had a baby once, in your mind, you kind of think that it's just going to happen again for you. And then to get caught up in secondary infertility is such a confusing, overwhelming, hard time. And something that's really hard to get your head around, because if your body's done something for once, and a lot of people will say this to you, your body knows what to do, it'll do it again. And that's just not the case for some women, for a lot of women. And I've even spoken to women that they've had infertility the 3rd time round. It's not black and white, and there's nothing black and white about any of this. And every story is different and every journey is different.
How old's Ollie now?
Ollie will be 3 at the end of March.
Yeah. And when did you decide that you wanted to start trying for your second child?
So I've always known that I wanted a second child. And to be honest, obviously when you've got a newborn, it's not ideal to be pregnant, but I kind of wouldn't have cared at any point to be pregnant. But when Ollie turned 1 was when I kind of started putting the pressure on myself and really thinking about wanting to start trying. So that would have been in March 2024. And then we went in mid-year there in June, we went to Europe, and we kind of said, well, if it happens, it happens. But once we get back from Europe, we'll really, really try. So, yeah, that's when we started thinking about it. But we always knew that we wanted more than one child. That was always a goal of ours.
And did you have any indication that, in your medical history or through your first experience, that this was going to be a challenge the second time?
When I was about 25, I think, I decided I've been on contraception. Well, I had been on contraception since I was about 17, 18 years old. So it goes for most women.
Yeah.
And no one really knows that if there is any kind of issue until they decide to go off contraception, right? And I don't even really remember why I did it, but I was about 26 years old and I just decided I was kind of sick of pumping the hormones through my body, or the artificial hormones. I just wanted to give my body a break and see what happened. And maybe I kind of subconsciously thought that there might be something wrong, because I remember it taking over a year for me to get my period back. And when I was getting my periods, they were very irregular and I was spotting all the time. So I decided to go to the doctor. And at that point, I did all the tests and got referred to a specialist and got diagnosed with PCOS, which is Polycystic Ovary Syndrome. But the doctor pretty much said to me, come back and see me when you want to have kids. And at that point in my life, I was like, it wasn't really affecting my life. So I was just kind of like, yeah, okay, cool, will do. And then so going into deciding that we wanted to conceive with our first son, I already kind of was on the front foot of knowing that I probably would need support. So in the lead up to our wedding, I'd already booked in to see the specialist and we started taking letrozole pretty much as soon as we got married. And I was fortunate enough, I think the 3rd month of that medication, it worked and we just got pregnant. Like I ovulated.
You were pregnant 2 months after you got married or 3 months after?
I think it was, so we got married in Feb and I think I was pregnant in July. So it was, in terms of trying for a first child, it was very quick, 4 or 5 months. And considering my history and that I wasn't having regular periods, it was literally like the first time I knew that I properly ovulated, I got pregnant.
So no wonder you went into the second pregnancy, or second part of the journey thinking it was the same.
And I knew that I knew that we would probably need support or intervention. And again, maybe not, because a lot of the time people say to you, well, a lot of people who have needed support the first time around, they quite often just naturally get pregnant. So I think I also had that in my mind. It's like, oh, well, my body's done it before. But then in the lead up to knowing that we wanted to start trying for the second baby and my periods weren't regular, I went back to the doctor, got a referral to the specialist to start the medication, sort of being on the front foot. But that was the beginning of a very long process for us and it wasn't as straightforward as the first time around.
Yeah. So what did that process look like? What were all those steps involved?
Yeah. So we started on letrozole and my body didn't really respond to it this time around. It wasn't letrozole. Letrozole is a medication that you can take it doesn't work for everyone, but I think it blocks the estrogen pathways in your brain, so it makes your body ovulate. I'm not a medical professional, but it basically is a medication that for some women, they take it and it makes them ovulate and you know when you're ovulating. So it's timed. You take it over 3 days and then you know what days you should be ovulating if it works for you. And it would work for me in alternative months. And at this stage, we didn't really know what was going on, but the month that it did work, we didn't get pregnant. And then I think I tried letrozole the next month and it didn't work. And then it was kind of like this ongoing thing that wasn't really happening. So we went back to the specialist and she reckoned that's probably over maybe a 6-month period. So then we went back to the specialist and she suggested doing ovulation induction, which is a supported cycle with hormone injections. So similar to the injections that you take when you do IVF, but it's just a much lower dose because you don't want to be ovulating heaps of eggs. You just want one. So I did that for the first month. I did that. It works like clockwork. Day 14, I ovulated. I didn't get pregnant. With ovulation induction, what happens is everything is really well timed. So you start taking the hormones, then you have blood tests and you have scans and you go in and they basically tell you when you have a dominant follicle and when it's big enough, and then you do a trigger shot and then they tell you what days to have sex. So it's basically like you do the trigger shot and then the next 3 days you have to have sex those days.
Sounds so romantic.
Yeah, it's beautiful. A non-stressful process. And then that happens and you have the 2-week wait and then you find out whether you're pregnant or not through a blood test. So we did 1 cycle of that. My body responded really well to it. So in that aspect, it worked well, but we didn't fall pregnant. And then we went to do it the next month and my body wasn't responding to the hormones, which we found really interesting because the same thing happened with letrozole. And after a lot of tests, my specialist finally figured out that one of my ovaries ovulated well and properly as it should. The other one didn't. And that's why my periods were so spread out. And it took I had to keep increasing the dose of my hormones for it to work that cycle. Like we thought it was just going to have to be like a cancelled cycle. They kept increasing my dose. But for some reason, my body finally responded to it. And I think it was like day 30 something that I did my trigger shot and ovulated, and we got pregnant that cycle. Which I will talk more about in another episode, but unfortunately that led to a pregnancy loss. So once that happened, we went back to the specialist. I obviously had to have a break from all of the hormones and trying. And then the specialist suggested that we do 2 more rounds of ovulation induction because obviously it had worked. And I said I would give it 1 more round. And if it wasn't successful, I wanted to go to IVF because by this stage it had been 18 months. So it's not a short process. By the time you go through all of this, then you wait for your specialist appointments. It's also drawn out. Like it sounds like it's month by month, but it's not because you're always waiting. And then you're also waiting for your cycles and your periods and all those kinds of things. So if you miss a month, you miss it and you've got to wait to the next. So, it was all very drawn out and we had been trying for a very long time. And my mental health was not in a good place by then. And I had just had enough. And after the pregnancy loss, the stress of it all and the strain, I think it was putting on our relationship. It was just the next step for us. And I know a lot of people can't say this, but it was the right choice for us. And I'm glad I made that choice then. And knowing what I know now, I actually wish that we had have gone to IVF earlier, only because it worked so well for us. And every case is different. They were the protocols that we did before we got to IVF.
When you say like IVF worked well for you, as in, do you mean like it led to a pregnancy, or was when you say it worked well, was there other things that for you, IVF, you felt better with IVF?
IVF in general, like obviously it did lead to a pregnancy, but before that, even with the amount of eggs that they were able to collect, which I can talk about in more detail, but everything worked really positively for us the first time around. And I ended up with 8 embryos from 1 round of IVF. And that is pretty unheard of. Like that is a really high number to get. So my body responded really well and some people aren't that lucky. So I guess going through that, we had 9 embryos, we've got 8 left now. So that's 9 chances to get pregnant. Also, for some reason, and again, everyone's different, like there is nothing easy about the IVF process. There is so much involved and it is really taxing on your mental health, relationship, and a lot of things in your life. But for me, I felt like the control was taken away from me with IVF because it is so controlled by somebody else. And I am a control freak. In this situation, it was better to take that stress off me. So I literally just had to go in, and when obviously the egg collection, you're heavily involved in it, but it's really science. And they're telling you when to come for the appointments. And when you go and you do your frozen embryo transfer or your fresh embryo transfer, it takes away a lot of the steps before that. And for whatever reason, my mindset was just so different for IVF, and I just felt so much more positive about it. And I don't know whether it's because I had a bit of a break and my mental health was better, but yeah, for whatever reason, it was just easier on me than doing like the timed intercourse and the unknown. It took a lot of the guesswork out of it.
Yeah. Was there like major, like everyone always talks about IVF being really expensive. Is ovulation induction the same, or is that like, was that funded for you, or how does that kind of work?
It's not funded, but it's definitely a cheaper option to IVF. Can't remember how much those cycles was. I think they're close to $1,000 and you've got to pay for medication, but it's not $12,000. So if it works for you, it's a great step before IVF. And even letrozole, I think a lot of specialists use that as the first protocol because it's like the script's $20. If the medication works for you and you can conceive naturally, amazing. And that's what happened for us the first time around. And then obviously the next step is the ovulation induction. So maybe each cycle is about $1,000. So then we would have spent, $3,000. It all adds up before going to IVF. But you don't get a rebate on ovulation induction, whereas IVF, you do get a rebate from the government and it's quite big. So that makes a difference.
I haven't gone through this process. And you've often said, like, unless you go through it, yourself, like you'll never quite understand. And I was reflecting on that, like one of our chats. And one of the things I didn't really think about was the fact that not only are you going through this like incredibly emotionally like taxing process, but you're also going through this like this hormone pump. I just had never thought about that as like what would also add on to what's already such a challenging time. Is there any like other like medical advice or support that you're kind of given through that? Or is it kind of like, this is how it is, deal with it, let us know how you're going?
Yeah, not really. Like, you're given the information. So it's like, these are the hormones and these are the things that can happen with your body. But that's kind of where it stops. You can call your IVF nurses. Well, where I went at Monash IVF in Geelong, I could call the nurses at any time and ask them questions. But you get the information and then that's kind of it. You kind of left your own devices. You can access one counselling session, I think, per cycle through Monash IVF. So there is that support as well. But no one really prepares you for what your body goes through and what the hormones do to you. And it actually wasn't, even in my ovulation induction cycles, I didn't realize the impacts it was having on how I was feeling day to day and my personality, because after we had the pregnancy loss, obviously that was devastating, but I had a forced break off the medication. It would have been for a good month or so. And I remember just waking up one day being like, wow, I forgot what it just felt like to be me and to feel happy and to feel like myself. I'd obviously gone through hell and back, but I still felt better than I did before that, which is why, isn't it? Like, absolutely wild. And then the next step on top of that, the hormones moving into IVF is even worse, and having like your wait periods when your body is just absolutely pumped through hormones is just horrific.
It was so hard watching you go through it. Like, I think you were just you went so insular and you just like completely like shut down. And I think we all knew like what you would like, why you were doing it. And we knew that you needed to like just focus on yourself and your family. But like, I just think, I'm sure other people go through that like feeling too. And I think to the point of like, you don't know unless you've been through it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that on the outside as well, like watching someone go through it. It's so hard to watch and kind of know, like if you felt so helpless, and it's like, I think a lot of people around you also felt helpless to like have a care and support you, because it is such a personal thing that like no one else can take the load off.
Yeah.
It's just you. Like, yes, like your husband or your partner can support, but you're the one that's like physically going through it all. And I think it's just such a hard part of the whole process.
There's so many different aspects of it, and the physical side is one part, which is huge. And yes, your partner can help to an extent, but the person who is actually doing the doing is the one that goes through so much and carries a lot of weight, and has to change. Well, for me personally, and this is what I should have also spoken about in the beginning, is I made so many lifestyle changes even before we would, getting support. I took supplements. I changed my exercise so I wasn't over exercising. I changed, didn't wear perfume. So many different things you can do, just like changing your everyday life. Wasn't drinking. And that's before you even start with any of the hormones or anything. So there's just so much pressure on the person doing the doing. And then you lump all these hormones on top of that. So you've got the physical side, and then you've also got the mental side of it and the mental load you're carrying, the guilt, the pressure, the pain, the heartbreak, every cycle. It's just, and as you said, it's just something that you could never actually fully understand unless you're going through it. And I don't even think you can understand everyone's individual journey, because the hormones have different effects on everyone's body. Someone might be able to do something that someone else can't. And then, mental side of it as well. It's just like the journeys are so different. And I actually feel really grateful that we had quite a straightforward IVF process. And like, it actually makes me emotional and it breaks my heart, because I see people online that have been trying for years and years, and they do, endless IVF cycles and egg collections, and some end up with no embryos. And I just cannot comprehend how hard that would be, because although my journey was hard, I know that there are people that are having a much tougher journey than me. And I can't even comprehend it.
Yeah. What would you say was the hardest part about this whole journey up until here?
The hardest part would be probably the hormones and talking about egg collection. So talking about the IVF process with egg collection. So you start taking hormones, and these hormones are at such a high dose. So by like day 3 of taking this injection, you're already feeling so bloated and heavy. You're like waddling around almost, depending on how your body reacts to it. Everyone's different. So you start taking these injections in the morning, and then with IVF, you have to start taking a second injection at nighttime. So number one of the hardest parts of that is you have to do it at the same time every day. So if you want to go out for dinner or do something, like I remember I had to do one at 7 a.m. in the morning, and I was teaching a 7 a.m. boxing class. I remember everyone was in there waiting for me. I was literally behind the desk. I remember getting the injection, literally shoving it, putting it in, putting it down, and walking straight in and being like, "Good morning, everyone." And I remember thinking to myself, but this is wild. And no one in that room would know like what is going on, and that I'd literally just done that and going through such a hard time, and then just to walk out there and be like, "Good morning, everyone."
Are you ready to slay the day?
Exactly. And you have to pump everyone up. So that the timing of everything is tough. All of your appointments with IVF, with ovulation induction, with all of it is really hard, because you get no choice in when your appointments are. Everything is timed based on how your body reacts to hormones, blood tests, all of those kinds of things. You get told the day before, "Oh, you're going in at this time for a scan," and you've got to work, or you've got a toddler, or you've just got life, and you can't make plans. You can't really make, if you're doing IVF cycles or ovulation induction, you can't go anywhere because you have to get scans done all the time and blood tests. Like, you can try and work it out. And I went on a holiday in Queensland in between one of my cycles, and I remember it ended up being a nightmare because I had to go and try and book in and get a scan somewhere, and it was just really stressful. But those are the things you have to do if you want to also have that one family holiday that you've had booked for a year. So that element of it and how disruptive it is to your life is huge. Obviously, the physical toll of I remember doing the egg collection in the lead up, like days before, as I said, I was waddling around. I couldn't really do much. You go in, you have the surgery. I remember the fall down from that. I have never been so exhausted in my entire life. Like a whole day, I remember I was meant to be working, and I physically could not get off the couch. Like, I remember, when you are so sick and you're telling yourself, like, get up and get some water, but you just can't physically move. That was the level of exhaustion just after my egg collection. Again, everyone's different, and because I produced so many eggs, they got 27 eggs from me, which is a huge number. So the come down from that was massive. After you go through that, then you've got 5 days to wait and see if you get any embryos. That is horrific. Wouldn't wish that kind of wait on anyone. It is the most stressful time in the world. You've just paid $12,000 and you don't know whether you're going to have an embryo at the end of it, and you've just put your body through hell. And some people put their body through hell and then just have to do it all over again because they might get one embryo and then like that wasn't successful. So there's that element of it. And then I guess if you move on to actually having an embryo transfer, the stress of all of that, and then going through the 2-week wait, which the 2-week wait even when you're trying to conceive, anyone can relate to, is just hell. So I think the extra weight of everything you've been through, the 2-week wait just is a really stressful, heavy time, because it's not just like your stock standard, you have sex and you wait and hope you're pregnant. It's like you've been through so much to get to that point, and if it doesn't work, it's like, well, what's next? So yeah, there's so many hard elements of it, and that's more just the physical side. I will talk more about the mental side in another episode, but I think, yeah, it's just, again, it's one of those things that you don't really, everyone knows that IVF is hard, but until you actually start it and all of the things that you go through and what your body goes through, it is a huge process and something that you really wouldn't wish upon anyone, or that anyone else would have to go through.
Is there any parts of it they're like physically painful? Like, is the needles painful, or is there like?
Yeah, so I found you kind of get used to one of the injections, which was a Gonal-F pen. I kind of got used to, and that was okay. But there's a needle that stops you from ovulating in the IVF cycle that's really thick, and I'd have to use an ice pack before I took that. And also you get bruises all over your stomach from the injections too, which is nice. It's a little reminder of what you're going through. But otherwise, obviously, I got put to sleep for the egg collection, so that wasn't painful. Your body towards the end, getting towards my egg collection after I've been doing injections, I think in total I did them for about 10 days. It hurt kind of to move around, but it wasn't excruciatingly painful. Yeah, but it's not nice, and no one wants to be injecting themselves with needles every day.
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy how just normal it becomes. I remember feeling so overwhelmed like the first time I ever had to do an injection, but after I did it, I was like, oh yeah, cool, like I can do this.
Yeah. I think we're going to wrap up this episode in a second, but if we kind of go through each stage, like if you've got any advice for like someone who's kind of just kind of realized that maybe they're sitting in like that secondary infertility space, and then we'll kind of go through each one.
Yeah, I guess my biggest advice, and even to anyone who has kind of a trying for a baby and it's just not happening for them, or they realize there might be something wrong, just get on the front foot and get to the doctor and push for what you want, because to get into a specialist takes months and months and months. And I think something that really worked in my favor, even though the process was long for us, is I was always on the front foot. I already knew that I had an issue, so I made sure, like I had a specialist appointment, like I think it was in October, before I even knew like we couldn't conceive with the letrozole. I already had those appointments in, and that was like the backup. But then obviously you get to the backup and you're like, great, we're here. But I just think don't wait. Just get on the front foot, go see a doctor. Or even if you're just about to start trying to have a baby, go to the doctor and get the test done. I think that AMH costs money, not that much, but all the other ones are pretty free. Like, why not? I don't know. For me, knowledge is power. And yeah, if you're in that position, just get the test done, know what you're looking at before. And then it can be really hard going through like a year of trying before you even take the step to go to the doctor, and then you're waiting, and then all of a sudden it's 2 years because you've had to wait 6 months to get into the doctor. So I guess that's my best advice in terms of anyone like starting out on the journey. Trust yourself, trust your instinct. And if you go to a doctor and they, palm you off or say, come back in 12 months, fight for what you want, go see someone else and say no. I was a little bit cheeky as well, knowing that I had a problem. I said that we had been trying before Oliver for longer than we had, because I just knew that I needed the medication. Like I knew it wasn't going to happen for us. So, that would be my.
Yeah. And then when you kind of hit that ovulation induction stage, any specific kind of advice around that part of the process?
I think it's really hard. I think just try and take things as they come. And it took me a long time to realize that the process was really out of my hands, and it's really up to what your body does and how your body responds to medication. So kind of trust your health professional, trust the process, and don't have specific dates and timelines in your head of when something's going to happen. I think that was really detrimental to me, thinking that, the first round on this day I ovulate, and then it didn't happen the second time around. So yeah, just have in mind that you might think something is going to happen at a certain time, and more likely than not it won't. Like something will happen and it'll need to be pushed out. So yeah, just kind of be open to that and be ready, unfortunately, for things to take time, even if it is, as I said, just waiting for an appointment. I know it's not fun. And this is more just from like a medical side of things. I will talk more about like the emotional side of things and things that I did to help, but just take it day by day. Find a health professional that you trust, I think is really, really important as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And any final advice just around like the idea for infertility journey first, like in general?
It's hard to say because every journey is different. I'm going to say trust in the process, but sometimes that doesn't happen for everybody.
But that's kind of what you said when we asked you, like, I asked you, I remember we were chatting a while ago, and I was like, do you feel like you could talk like you do now if you hadn't conceived at this stage? And like, I think now you have hope, right? Like, yeah, your fertility, the other.
And that's the thing I don't like to say, because I think if someone's really in the trenches of infertility and you say like, keep the hope, keep the faith, but if you've just like, if you're sitting in it and you're like, I've been keeping the hope for 2 years and like the hope isn't enough right now. I don't want to just say that to someone, especially because I'm sitting here pregnant. But I do just want to say keep going, because there were so many times that I wanted to give up, and it all felt really hard and really difficult, and it is really hard and it is really difficult. But trust in the universe and just keep going. Just keep going, and yeah, really trust that your miracle is coming soon. And again, I think my main advice with this IVF is, if something's not working for you and you've tried round after round and with the same specialist and, you know, it's not working well, seek other advice. But there is nothing wrong with going and getting a second opinion and just, doing your own research. Because actually, one thing I do want to say to anyone who is starting the process of trying to conceive, look at the things you can change with your lifestyle before anything else. Because although our process before I got to IVF had been 18 months, I had been taking the right supplements, I had been preparing my body, and yes, I had a really, really positive IVF experience, but I don't think that was luck. I think it was based on all of the steps I took before I got there and how ready my body was. I was taking CoQ10, fish oil tablets. I was doing acupuncture weekly. Like, there were a lot of things I was doing. See if you can make some small changes and prepare your body before you get there, because even my acupuncturist said a lot of women, they will already be there and they've had an unsuccessful round, and then they decide they want to make these changes, and then it's another 6 months before it actually, you know, if you're taking supplements, they actually have an effect on your body. So that is, I think, just the first step, is just look at the things you can do, simple, small changes to your life, some supplements you can be taking before looking at that big picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I have had some beautiful stories of women saying that like their partner will stand there and they'll do the injection for them. And there was a really hard injection that we had to like mix up, and Nick would do that for me, because I think I tried to do it once and I just smashed the pile thing. So he did that. So I have heard of some beautiful ways that partners can support. And if it's even just coming along to all of the appointments with you, like, you've got to take the time off work, so maybe they can take some time off too.
Yeah.
And come and support and be there.
Nice. Keep going. I like keep
going.
Just keep faith is hard in times, but keep going.
Yeah. Keep the faith, which I always say, and as I have said to you before, a good friend said this to me probably a year or so ago, keep the faith, and I always keep that in my mind. But I'm just aware that sometimes that can also not be the right thing to say to someone. So, yeah.
Good. Thanks, Al.
Maurice. This has been The Space Between Two Lines. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and register on our website to share your story. The link is in the bio. Until next time.